All right. Welcome, Bonnie, to Brightway Chats. And this is where we explore what creativity actually looks like in real life. And our whole mission is to show that creativity is inherent to every single person. And while it's inherent inside everybody, oftentimes we will lose our way here and there. And we like to explore how to get back on the path. So thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to join you. This is a wonderful, wonderful podcast. I'm excited.
Yeah, we really want to show that, creativity is possible. It's very, very possible. It's inherent. And where are you?
Oh, I am in Eastern Massachusetts, so I'm about 45 minutes south of Boston.
Lovely, lovely. And can you tell us a little bit about your creative journey? I know it started from when you were a child.
I have always been involved in music through my own curiosity. We had a little, I don't even know what they're called. It looks like a piano, but it's like an organ. It's very small. And we had that in the house, and I always played with it. And I picked up violin in 4th grade. And then at 11, when I was, I believe, in 8th grade, my music teacher introduced me to Phantom of the Opera and Carmen and all of these wonderful musicals. And I fell in love, and I sang them because they had such wonderful, engaging lyrics. And my dad and his girlfriend at the time were like, she can sing. We need to get her lessons. Like, this needs to happen because reasons. And so I was classically trained by a wonderful, wonderful, fierce little fiery red-haired woman who gave me all of the excellent tools you need to not wreck yourself. And then, I went to college for music because I wanted to be a voice teacher. That was my driving goal, because I really appreciated what she did for me, and I wanted to be able to do that for other people. And as soon as I got into music school for undergrad, I was immediately hit by what felt like a 500,000-pound hammer. I was not ready for any of the expectations that the professors put on me. I was a good vocalist. I was an excellent vocalist. And I had all the leads and all of the plays and all of the musicals, and I did all of these things. And then he said, I need you to write a composition for a 12-piece orchestra. Oh. I don't know how to do that. I don't even know how to begin doing that. And that was the first start of my semester for Music Theory 101. And right, your face says it all. Like, what? And this man also happened to be the guy who ran the choir. And so I immediately felt like I didn't belong. Like, I don't belong here. And because he was not just the music theory teacher, he was also the choir teacher. You kind of shrink away from that. And so I struggle a lot, even now, as, I don't even want to think about how many years later, like 20 years later, and you can still see the effects of that, where it just felt like, well, this is an unknown that I am not able to, I shouldn't even bother trying to pursue. I'm out of my league. And to finally have to circle back around to the place where it doesn't matter, and it's a completely full circle back to that point where I had that little keyboard, that made little plinky noises, and I played and I played and I played, and I loved it. And my parents loved it. And my parents loved it enough to encourage me to do it. And I said, self, we've made it back around. None of those things matter. And it's hard to sit and think, oh, I could have, it would have been great if I come to this a little sooner, but it doesn't matter, because I'm here now. And from here, I've been so unreasonably blessed to be surrounded by such incredible, incredible people and guides and mentors and teachers that always know how to give me what I need in order to make the next step. And I recognize that, and I'm so supported at home. My husband is just, I'm the worst with technology. So let me tell you what, the worst. Like, if it's not analog, I don't know how to deal with it. So he sets up all of my stuff. He never complains. He does it on his own because he supports me. And so those supports and those guidance counselors really, really kind of give you momentum. Because when these are people that you respect and you love and you care about, you don't want to let them down. And so there you have it's like a whole new aspect of, oh no, But no, wait, no, wait, as long as you're doing the thing, they're all happy because you're happy. And it's just this whole happiness sharing thing. And it's wonderful. And that to me is what being part of music and art is. You know, it should be all of that, just all the time.
Yeah, I love how you knew really what that feeling was from the get-go, from your earliest days. You knew that feeling of connection and that music was making you feel so alive and so happy. And maybe those weren't the words that you necessarily used as a child, but you know, you really were yourself at that time. And not only did you feel that, but everybody around you felt that as well. And as time goes on, sometimes we start losing track of that feeling, and external things come in and start affecting us, such as, you know, we're given this assignment that throws us, and we start to feel like big things like, oh, I don't belong here. I'm not cut out for this. Like, really, it suddenly becomes internalized. These external things come in and kind of throw us off of our center. And then as we find our ways back, and you know my story, it's exactly the same in many, many ways. As we circle back, it's like, oh my goodness, I knew this already. But the good thing is, for having gone through that journey, we have a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience to share. And so I'm so pleased about how your story really empowers people to know that no matter what happens, you can get back on the path, even when you've had very, very terrifying experiences. So when you went into college and began getting those experiences around music, would you say it affected you in terms of performance anxiety?
So I am one of the rare sparkly fae of the world who loves to perform. You could
What
literally,
are you?
you could call, if I lived nearby, you could call me and say, hey, I need you to go sing 5 songs on stage in front of 2,000 people. And I'd say, can I get 5 minutes to do my hair? Like, I am there, I'm ready, I'm done. I love it. I'm really, really great in front of a crowd. No issues whatsoever. For me, my deep rooted fear, the thing with claws, is the fear of expressing myself in a deep way that's meaningful to me and having it come across wrong. And so I get caught in the literal creativity part of it. That's where my gears twist.
Right. Right. So being misunderstood, misinterpreted.
Or not doing justice to what it is that I'm trying to do. And that's literally what I'm working on now with I have such a great teacher. She pushes me exactly the way I need. And she has given me the tools I need to just write a song. I have like a checklist with steps and an order in which to do things. And now that I have that, I can take all that baggage. None of it matters because we're not doing that right now. Right now, we're learning, you know, the structure, the things that will allow the creativity to feel natural. Because that was basically what I think it was I didn't have the tools in my toolbox that I really needed to do what I need to do. And this whole journey here has been what allowed me to realize that, you know, I kept assigning myself to, you know, the harp or to an instrument where this is, you know, this is your instrument, this is what you do. But once I started realizing that that wasn't the part that mattered, it allowed all of that to just melt away. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to concern yourself with what your chosen instrument is or what other people think of it or any of that. Just no. I'm just going to make a thing with these. Here's my instructions, right?
Yeah.
And learn and practice and do. And the more you do, the more natural it becomes. And then you're just pouring it out and you're not even realizing it's happening. And it's just been it's been a wild ride, just wild.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of impression, I think, that creativity just sort of randomly shows up. Like we get inspiration and the thing happens. You know, there's a lot of mystique around it, and you're basically struck by the muse and you can suddenly do something. This is something, as you know, that I actually don't really believe in. I believe inspiration is absolutely a thing. It's magic in many ways. I also believe in skill. And so when you're talking about the structure and system, could you talk a little bit more about that in terms of how that structure really can actually let the magic come out more? It actually does not kill the magic in any way.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like theory can be very off-putting for a lot of people because there's so much of it, and where do you start? But as personally, I'm a biologist and a chemist. So for me, it's just the science of music. And so you can look at it as a language that you can hear these things, you can do these experiments, they are reproducible every time. That's what music theory is. And so if you can get past feeling like overwhelmed by all of these words, then you can get a better move on to the part that actually matters, which is, but why? So we've decided to name these things, to write these things and make these things important, but why? And that's a little more esoteric, and I think it's oddly enough easier to kind of get a grip on from the artistic side of it. And so when you can kind of find the things you need in the order, that's the thing, is you have to find them in the order in which you need them. There's all of this stuff, but the foundation, the nuts and bolts, so you need to just really hone in and just get smaller and smaller until you can find where it starts. And for me, that was being assigned to write a song. My teacher was like, oh, great, you sent me lyrics, go do something with them. So now I was like, well, oh shoot, okay, now I have an assignment, very well. And so I did. I started, and I struggled and I struggled and I struggled, and it was hard, and I didn't know what I was doing. And then I realized I didn't know what I was doing. That's good. Because now I have the ability to ask the right questions. Because otherwise you're just flailing. You're just flailing around in the expanse of nothingness going, well, maybe I'll hit something I need eventually. But, once you understand why, you go, well, it's failing. But now I can ask why. So here's the problems I'm having. What do? How fix?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized very much, probably like many, many, many people, I was putting the cart in front of the horse, as they say, because you want to get moving, because you're excited, because you're in a hurry to get to where you think you're supposed to be, right? I should already be there by now. I'm 39. What's going on? Why am I not doing this yet? But you've got to start in the same place that everyone else starts, even if you're 39 when you're starting it. And so that really kind of allowed me to get myself settled and to stop racing for it. Like, my mother has a thing that she says. She said it all through my childhood, and it was always after a crash or a clang or a fall or whatever, and she'd say, the hurrier I go, the farther behind I get. And the older I get, the more I say it. Slow down. Just think about what you're doing when you're doing it, and not about what you're supposed to be doing next. And then the creativity just literally falls out. Because you're in your moment. You're here now. Right now.
Yeah. Creativity is so much a process. It is process. That's really all it is. And yes, these products emerge along the way, but they only emerge because of the process. So if we're not there in the process, or we're rushing the process, number one, we're not having a good time. So, probably we'll end up with burnout, or we won't really want to do the thing. When people find themselves resistant to practice, it's oftentimes that practice is not associated with having fun. Otherwise they'd do it, But even in the end, regarding the product, I really feel the product ends up getting affected, of course, if we're not really enjoying the process. And so really, you can't go wrong looking at the process. And when you talk about the systems and structures, so much process is actually in that. And I also love the way that for you, you're using the process in a really non-judgmental way, in terms of, oh, that's good or bad. You're saying, is it working or is it not working? And from there, you have all kinds of volition and different opportunities. And it's much more of an exploration than just some kind of cut and dried judgment.
Yeah, I guess instead of being given a blank page, I now have a coloring page. So, lines on it, I just got to fill them in.
Yeah. So, I'm also struck by your discussion about mentors. Mentors have been really important for me as well. How do you go about finding mentors?
Fortune has smiled upon me. So I have forcibly chosen excellent human beings to exist within my life and my friendship circle. And so I have always, always, always known wonderful, wonderful human beings. And from there, it becomes very easy to reach out and find more of them.
Yeah.
I hate to say I have a high standard for the people I'm friends with, but I do, but it's good. Like, I know all kinds of people from all over the world, and they're all wonderful humans. Like, the thing that matters is there. And like I said, they know more wonderful humans who are interesting and dedicated to whatever their craft is. And, you know, I know who knows blacksmiths? I know two of them. It's such, like, I know specialists in things. I always say, if I can't answer your question, I know someone who can, no matter what it is. I know an expert in it. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to utilize, you know. And it's not, I don't think anyone should ever hesitate to use the friends in their group to find more friends. Like, you know, I appreciate you. I trust you as a human. Who do you know that would, you know, be able to help with this or that? You know, I found some incredible, incredible friends just literally through, hey, this seems like a person you would like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know that old saying that, you know, we tend to be the sum of the six people around us. I don't entirely believe that, but I definitely believe the six closest people around us affect us greatly. And then, of course, many of us know many more than that. You know, our circles are wide at this point. And being picky about the people you spend your time and energy with is, I believe it's really important because, I mean, you show it, because it really affects our entire journey, our whole journey in life, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel the things that you spend your time doing are the most important things, because it's a horrible thing to say because it sounds so terrible, but I always say we're just skin sacks full of time. You know, you can, right? That's basically what we are, right? And you can let it leak out, or you can squeeze it out. There's all kinds of ways you can do with it, but that time is really all you've got. That's
Yeah.
that's what you're made out of is time.
Very precious.
And it is. It's very, very precious to me. And so I kind of weigh things by value of my time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and finding other people who find things important, I think, are the best people to be close to. They have such insight and such wisdom because they pay attention. You know, find the askers of why, but why? You know, and then they go find it. Like, what, you know, why does that bird do that thing? I'm gonna watch and I'm gonna find out.
Another great thing that we did from since when we were tiny, you know, there's the 3-year-old who goes, why? I mean, those are actually good questions to be asking. So you're frozen just a little bit. Actually, I'm going to turn off my fan here.
You, probably me.
Ah, good. Yep, you're back.
We're back.
You're back. Yay. Yay. So we talked about the idea of having a structure and a system. We talked about the idea of your artistic community, your creative community. We talked about the idea of mentors, which I feel is so important.
So important.
Right. And then another thing, you know, that I really admire about what you do is your incredible cross training. You're like a master gardener, amongst other things. You know, I know you as a wonderful harpist and now doing harp composing. You do have a lot of passions, a lot of creative endeavors. Could you share some of them with us?
Absolutely.
What do you like doing?
Like, I feel like my list is rather unreasonably long. I see, I like shiny things. I put it on my business card. I'm a shiny thing enthusiast. And so if I see something that I think is shiny, I want to know more about it. And so I accumulate all of these incredible, rewarding hobbies. So I've also done some interesting things. Like, I was in the military. I was a hydraulic mechanic and a steam engine mechanic. I've worked on 50,000 horsepower engines, you know, so things that are, yeah, like, right, like, oh, okay, sure, who hasn't, like you do. um and I've always been in art and music, and I think it sounds it doesn't sound like directly related, but being a science major has absolutely impacted my life in one of the best ways that I never expected. And it was just through, well, once again, excellent professors. I had wonderful fellow students who helped me study and kept me in line. It was, the whole thing was just beautifully put together and orchestrated. But the whole process of learning to be a scientist kind of puts your head in an interesting place where you're better able to build things from the ground up. You go, okay, I can deconstruct this and put it back together, and now I understand why. And you start to do that with a lot of stuff. And so now everything's really interesting. You're like, oh, knitting? I understand knitting because I can see it. I can look at it and I can take it apart and put it together, and it all makes sense. And so I picked up knitting. And I was like, well, if I can knit, I can crochet. And I crochet, so I crochet as well. If you're going to do those things, now you're in the fiber arts, so I spin my own yarn. And I make all my own battings. Let's see, what are my other hobbies? Obviously plants. I work dangerous. I work at a nursery, and so I don't think I've earned a single red cent from that place because they get all of my money.
And I know you've been putting together a book of plants, very beautifully designed. I mean, it goes even beyond calligraphy. I mean, it's just a gorgeous work, a long-term work that you
I did. I hired a bookmaker from Spain. This is just one woman. She makes books. That's what she does. And so I commissioned her for a special book. And my intention is to put in all of the plants that I have in my home, in my garden, and to give it all of their properties, from the scientific to the medicinal to the mystical, and just all in one place, but nothing extraneous. So it'll be my book. It'll be very, very personal. But I can't imagine that people wouldn't want to look through it anyway.
Oh, I really want to.
It's a tome. It's a big, big tome.
Right.
And that was, so I started doing the calligraphy, and that was after my second hand surgery. So it was literally done with the hope of giving myself some dexterity control, which it did. Mm-hmm. And moving to that idea, after the hand surgeries, I had a lot of struggles because it was my tendons. No one needs to get into details, but my tendons, not so good. And my arm atrophied, my hand atrophied, my tendons break. And so I was like, what can I do to help strengthen and also keep limber so that I can avoid this from happening? And I started to do what is known as Qigong. And there's, I believe, 12 or 16 different forms. And I do the Yi Jin Jing, which is for tendon health. And that has absolutely, it's a game changer. It has made me so much better in so many more ways than just physically. Because as you're doing these things, it goes back to that scientific mind where you're like, oh, well, I have these injuries and these things that I have to work through. And you're nowhere but with yourself in that moment, slowly moving through, these motions. And as you sit with yourself, you're able to work through things, right. Things that are not even related, So I have an OCD where I have to count. I'm a counter. So if I'm doing a thing, I'm counting. And it's very frustrating. I hate that I do it. It doesn't bother anyone else. It's in my head, but I'm like, oh gosh, I don't care how many times I've cut this onion. And so because I did it so often with the Qigong, I turned it around. Now, when I'm cutting or doing anything and I'm counting, I use it to practice my posture. And so I've taken this negative and redirected it into a positive, right? And it was for the Qigong that kind of allowed me to give myself that skill. Unexpected. It had never been anticipated. It wasn't what I was looking to get from it, but it's been a game changer to be able to redirect myself. It's like tricking a kid with candy. Don't cry, don't cry. Do you want a lollipop? And I'm like, oh yeah, I want a lollipop. We're good now.
I'm really struck by your amazing use of cross training. And so in using this Qigong as a way to basically also have a sense of self-inquiry and to get even clearer on what you're about can only impact all your expression in a very, very powerful way. So although you had an injury, and for some people, that might be like, oh, stop everything, this is terrifying, and relying simply on surgery, you also went the extra mile and took up Qigong and began getting all these benefits, including good posture. I have a really brief story about a harp student coming in for her first lesson, and she was an adult in her early 50s probably, and I usually like to start people with improv when they are on the harp because it's just so ridiculously fruitful right from the get-go. And so I kind of showed her a little bit about the hand position, and I said, well, you just make some gestures, and see how it goes. And she just began playing with incredible form. And I was like, are you sure that you haven't played the harp before? And she said, no, I've never played. And I was like, this is so strange. I was like, are you a dancer? And she said, no. I was like, do you do yoga? She was like, no, not really. And I was like, well, you must do some kind of physical thing. And she said, well, I've done Tai Chi for 20 years. And I was like,
there it is.
You've had 5 years of harp lessons already. You're already on year 5 in my book. So, we both come from a classical background, and there's sometimes an attitude like every spare minute should be on our one instrument that we've chosen from day one, and every minute should be geared towards becoming ever more virtuosic on that one thing. But throughout the years, I've found that actually you can get incredible breakthroughs and quantum leaps through cross-training instead. So when I think about, what you learned with posture, with Qigong, I mean, sometimes that can only be learned to that depth and that fast speed that you learned it with through Qigong, not necessarily through traditional lessons. So what do you think of that?
I absolutely agree. In this particular instance, the Qigong, the whole purpose of stretching your tendons, it has happened because of my injury. So I've literally made huge strides in my life because of this, where, if your goal is to stretch and lengthen, right, your tendons are attached to your muscles, which are then attached, to the bones. But if you're stretching, you cannot possibly force it. If you're doing anything that involves force, you're tightening your muscles, which inherently is the opposite of stretching. Wow. And so my query to myself was, well, if this is true, then the best way to go about stretching is to be in perfect balance. Literally, physically find your balance point. And so it forced me to learn, and it starts slow. You're not good at it at first when you realize I can't balance, and you start learning the toes, and those toes do a job, and it's amazing. And you start to really discover how your body actually works when you just try to find balance in posture. You get all those little boxes of your spine stacked up nice and straight, and you're like, oh, I don't have to do anything now. Now I'm just literally floating in space. But it's true, I would have never come to that without the Qigong.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. So I think cross-training clearly should be here to stay. And I don't like the word should a lot, but in this case, I really feel like I missed out by sort of obsessively just focusing on my 2 instruments, piano and then harp, and cutting things out sometimes. I remember I had a friend who was actually a composer, and he also loved taking photos. And I would just give him, the 3rd degree. I'd be like, why are you taking photos? You should be composing. That's what you are. You're a composer. Any time spent away from the composing desk is time that you're not composing. And he was like, mind boggled at my attitude. And now I'm mind boggled at my attitude. But I think, cross-training is an incredible way to get more insight on the thing you're doing. And it also keeps your passion alive. It feeds it. It gives it all kinds of new inspiration and juice.
Sometimes you need to look at things from the outside in order to really get good insight. And in order to do that, you literally have to walk away. You have to put it down and walk away, go for a run, go hit your punching bag, go do whatever it is that you do. Maybe you dance, maybe you do Tai Chi. There's so many things that you can allow to be what I call and this will apply to all, I call it meditation in motion. It doesn't matter what your chosen thing is. Maybe dance, maybe it's, the martial arts, maybe you're a runner, maybe you're a workout junkie, whatever that happens to be. But once you get your body doing a thing that it is comfortable doing and knows how to do, let your brain go. All of a sudden, it's literally free. And that's when it's why we always have those shower moments, right? You're all relaxed, your brain is chill, and you go, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. I love how you're describing this, basically coming back to your center physically. When you're in balance, everything starts coming out. And then also, on the emotional, spiritual, intellectual level, when we come back to ourselves, everything becomes so much easier and more enjoyable, more productive, more comes out of it as a side effect. We're not obsessed about the products, but guess what? They come out anyway because we're really there.
And it gives me my tiny little satisfaction of feeling like a little bit like a rebel, because you're like, take that hydraulic press, you will not squish me.
Yes.
You feel like this tiny, mighty little, dense, bright thing of, untouchableness. You're like, no, it's cool. And this has been the year to challenge it, right?
Yeah, true strength and true confidence. Yeah, I mean, confidence as in faith in oneself, confidence, faith in oneself. That's a big deal, faith in oneself.
It really is. It really, really is. The trust yourself. And then it was actually funny. I finally, like literally this year was all of this happening in my emotional journey. And then in your most recent email, your one that you turned into a newsletter, you suggested, and I don't remember the wording, where put down, the practice plan and the purpose. Now's the time to manifest. And it's like, yes. You also can't get caught in that part of the process, because then you'll never create. And sometimes having someone else go, hey.
Yeah, right. Again,
right?
the community aspect I mean, for me, I think so much about, system structure and then community. Those two things together really help us with our manifestation. So the last thing I'd like to really come to, and something that you had just shared with me, super struck me. The the idea that sometimes we may feel that we're betraying our chosen discipline, say it's harp, if we go and do something else. So now this really taps into the cross training again, but there is sometimes it's quite almost desperate feeling like, I'm betraying my thing. If I don't just focus on that particular thing. And you said earlier, before we started recording, that it's almost like we confuse ourselves with that thing. Like we sometimes feel like we've almost like morphed ourselves into that thing.
Yeah, you become entwined with it.
Yes.
And so when you feel like you are entwined with this thing, where you are, when people think of you, they think of this. And so if you're not good at this, well, then who am I? And and so you have this intertwining of thing and person, and it's very easy to not be able to find your own worth when you don't see or feel that you're good enough. Right. And so you're like, well, how can I ever possibly be good enough? I'm already behind the curve. People have been doing this much longer than me and have much better skills and all of these things. And all of a sudden I had this realization, this moment where it's like the harp, the instrument, the thing is not me. It is not my purpose. It is a beautiful, wonderful, vital tool that supports my purpose, that I can utilize in the ways that it is strong, to emphasize the ways that I am strong. But we are not the same thing.
Right. Oh, I love that. I love that so much, because I feel like when we get intertwined with our tool, essentially, too closely, our identity is wrapped up with it in such a way that we start to lose ourselves. We're completely beholden to whatever's happening that day. You know, was it a good practice day? Oh, I'm a good person. Was it a bad practice day? I'm a rubbish person. And I mean, that is just, yeah. There's such mystique about whatever our chosen art form is, that we can say, oh, I am a musician, I am a writer, you know, I am a dancer. But we aren't really. We just happen to be doing those things. We are that thing that you were as a little girl, first approaching, you know, the little keyboard. Right there, that was everything.
I I I like to watch nature. It brings me a lot of insight, and having myself surrounded by plants and flowers does a really good job of that. And I watch the bees, right? I like to watch the bees on the flowers, and I've realized the bees aren't like getting up in the morning and going to work, being like, oh man, I gotta go to another flower. I gotta clock in. They're like, they're literally all over those flowers. They're like, this is the best pollen I've ever had in my life. They get in there, they're rolling around, their little butts are going, they're loving it. They're loving it. They're having so much fun. And I've decided that is, I think that's what bees are about. And they're really productive. You know, they get a lot done. They make really good honey. They're adorable and fuzzy. They communicate through dance. You know, they have a queen. They're run by women. I'm here for this. I'm here for all of it. Be a bee. Love what you do.
Oh, well, I love that. I love that metaphor. I feel like that's the perfect note to wrap up on. Thank you so much, Bonnie. So many insights about what creativity looks like and what supports our creativity and some of the myths that are around it and how we can let go. And always the coming back to center and asking the question, why? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.
Yay. Talk soon. Bye.